When I'm auditing Google Ads accounts, one common question that I often get, well, I guess forms of many questions, is how is my click-through rate compared to others? Or how is my average cost per click? Is it high? Is it low? Or what's the benchmark for the conversion rate for my store or whatever? What should it be at? Where should I be targeting? Is it what is good basically? And so in this video, I'm going to be helping answer those questions and point you to a resource where you can figure out for your industry exactly all these benchmark targets and find out if you're currently high or low. Now, the resource that we are talking about is WordStream. So WordStream is an incredible resource if you want to keep up on anything Google Ads or any digital marketing in general. But every year they come out with these Google Ads benchmarks for your industry, as you can see, and it's been updated for 2022. So this is the latest numbers. And so I wanted to quickly go through this with you and highlight some of the things that I've seen and show you how you can figure out for your industry what's the best click-through rate, conversion rate, cost per acquisition, essentially. So if we scroll down here, they put in these nice little graphs. As you can see, just in general, if we're not even talking about industries, the average click-through rate on Google is 3.47 or 3.17, sorry. And the average click-through rate on Google Display Network, so your banner ads, is 4.6. You can see here are the highs and the higher ones and the lower ones. As you see, the dating services has a very high click-through rate at 6%. And on the display network, real estate actually has a very high click-through rate on the Google Display Network. And this is just another chart to see this. You can see here real estate has a very high click-through rate on the Google Display Network. No surprise, I feel like when you're going to buy a home, you want to see the pictures of those different things. So if you're a real estate agent, take note, you probably want to be serving a lot on the Google Display Network and putting some budget towards there. Some other highlights, as you can see, travel and hospitality has a very high click-through rate, but the average across the board is 3.17, and then it fluctuates based on your industry a little bit here. As we scroll down here, you'll notice that here are the average cost per clicks. Now, I will say that these are averages because I've worked in a couple of accounts. For instance, lawyers, it says is obviously the highest at 6.75, but this is definitely an average because if you're working for a personal law attorney or accident lawyer, I've seen clicks as high as $100, $200 per click. So keep that in mind. These are just the averages, but lawyers being the highest, consumer, I think this is consumer services at 6.4, and then down here you have your B2B software as well, pretty high. And then on the higher end for the Google Display Network, you have dating services, and for real estate you're looking at $2.37. And here's the graph showing this as well. And of course, by the way, I will link this blog post that I mentioned down in the description as well, so if you wanted to go check this out for yourself. Now, if we move on to the average conversion rates, as you can see, there's a clear outlier here, the dating services, and then law firms as well have a very high click-through rate. So even though the CPCs are higher, the click-through rate is higher, so you need less people to go to your website to actually convert them. And then here we have cars as well, the auto services at 6% for an average conversion rate, which is actually surprising to me. That seems really high, one that I'm kind of skeptical of, but you can take it for what it's worth. B2B software, this is a really helpful one. 3% is what you're looking at for the display network, 0.08. Home goods, 2.7, and 4.3. And now we move on to the average cost. They label this the average cost per action by industry. So this, you could say this is like a lead, or maybe it could be a sale if you're like in e-commerce. But this gives you a breakdown of the average cost per action. As you can see, the technology is very high at average CPA of search of $133. For B2B software, you're looking at $116. Legal, $89. Travel and hospitality, $44. On your lower end, you're looking at employment services at $48 and e-commerce $45.72. So there's kind of your benchmarks for your average cost per acquisition. And as you can see, this data source is based on a sample of almost 15,000 US-based accounts that WordStream manages. And you can see some of the frequently asked questions here that I think are helpful. This is not worldwide data, so just a heads up here. This is only reflected of US-based accounts. They do mention that they do have average benchmarks worldwide as well, if you wanted to check out this blog here. Another thing that I did want to point out is they do have this blog as well that shows the differences of 2021 versus 2022. I think this is also very helpful. You can scroll here and see the average cost per click, cost per lead, click-through rate, and average conversion rate for each of those industries. But as well, you can scroll down and see here is the changes between 2021 and 2022. As you see, overall across the board, unfortunately, most of the average cost per clicks went up, with a few exceptions. It looks like beauty and personal care fell, 17% for whatever reason. Auto repair services are now down about 2%. But then finance and insurance surprisingly down 11%. Education down 4%. Actually, now that I'm reading these out, it's kind of it's a balance, I guess, back and forth between the two. But travel up 16%. But I think that's very fascinating to check out this graph on where it was in 2021 versus 2022. If you're seeing higher costs inside of your account, this could possibly tell you some of the trends inside of there. And then same, if we come over here to the average click-through rate, you can get an idea of the average click-through rate drops or increases essentially. Now you'll notice here that it's interesting that almost all of the click-through rates for these industries have gone up, which is strange. Maybe that means that more people are searching inside of Google, or maybe it means that the responsive search ads that Google has come out and introduced is allowing people to get higher click-through rates. I don't know maybe why this might be. It looks like the only exception to this, the only one that didn't increase in click-through rate was the shopping, collectibles, gifts, general, which not exactly 100% sure what that means, but take that for what it's worth. And then if we scroll down here as well, here is the average conversion rates, and these are all across the board. And as you can see, there's really big jumps, which is interesting. 20%, 50%, 13%, 20%. So it's interesting that for travel, for instance, the click-through rates increased, but the actual conversion rates have decreased over the past year. So something really interesting to note there as well. And finally, we have the average cost per lead, which I think is helpful as well. You can get an idea if for whatever reason your cost per lead has gone up, 10%, 20% or whatever. This gives you the data to back up maybe why that might be happening. And as you can see, unfortunately, across the board, everything is pretty. I don't think there's any in the negative where the average cost per lead has gone down. So that just shows you in one basically graph that the cost for advertising on Google has definitely gone up. And so that's why you need to be more savvy and more strategic in the way you're building out your Google Ads accounts. That's why you're subscribed to this channel, so that you can learn all those tips and tricks. But that's pretty much everything that I have for you. If you do want to learn how to beat the other people that are bidding for these kind of things, check out this video right here, walk you through more of those Google Ads strategies. Once again, all these are linked down in the description below, and we'll see you in the next one.